Rev up your engines! Well, if you're wondering, I made it to the Clarksville tornado. It was only a quarter of a mile from my house, but this U-Haul truck didn't make out so well. Basically just followed the street, and then went across the street and destroyed everything. And this whole building got folded up like an accordion. Luckily, the people at Luigi's Pizzeria got out. They got inside the freezer, and the firemen had to come and rescue them, but they're safe now. Needless to say, the telephone poles didn't fare all that well. And the top of the church blew off too. And these transformers have turned into some kind of weird-looking pontoon boat. Now this Toyota Yaris has seen better days, but I'll bet you it'll start right up. Now with all the power out and darkness and cold, how can they continue to film and help you guys out? Well, it's actually pretty easy. As I zoom out, you can see that's just a picture of the moon on my laptop. And as you can see, my lights are shining pretty bright. Now, I do have to say, basically I give this Vetomile power inverter 1500 watts that changes the 12-volt battery into 110-volt electricity and F. I would never buy one of these again. This watt cycle, lithium-ion 12-volt, 200 ampere-hour battery, this has been perfectly fine. Not like I got cheap cables. These are strong cables bolted on right to the unit. This unit just is nowhere near the rating they claimed it was. And the other weird thing was, the stupid cooling fan here wasn't coming on. It should have been coming on the whole time, but it wasn't. Pile of junk, don't buy one. Well, it's a good thing my son has a Generac at his house, so we can survive with extension cords going to his house. Although the dogs seem to like it. They like this cold weather. Now, lucky my family was spared from this tornado, but let's say you're driving in a car. What should you do if you come upon a tornado? Well, of course, the first thing is to avoid the tornado in the first place. You see one coming, don't be a sightseer. Oh, let's see how close we can get. Go in the opposite direction. Realize generally the ground speed of a tornado isn't that fast. This particular one was going like 39 miles an hour once it hit the ground, right? You can go a lot faster than 39 miles an hour in the opposite direction, right? So escape if at all possible. Now, let's say you can't escape, it's headed towards you. Well, the first thing you want to do, roll all the windows up. Yeah, they might shatter, but you're much better having the window shattered rather than a piece of log coming through and hitting you in the head. Then what you want to do is get as low as possible. Don't want it running. Something happens, it tumbles over, it could start on fire, right? So turn it off. And in this case, the lowest you can get is the back seat. So you get in the back seat and get down as low as you can. And hey, I got a motorcycle helmet in here. I never thought a motorcycle helmet was going to help me in a car, but in this case, even though it's my wife's helmet, it's kind of small for me, better than nothing. If you got a big jacket on too, that's really handy in case there's any flying shards. But let's face the facts, the best thing to do is to avoid the tornado. So keep your weather warnings set up on your phone. You get a weather warning, there's a tornado coming, go for shelter as soon as you can. Low-lying areas are best. If you can get anywhere that's got a cellar, you go in your cellar. If there's no cellar, try to find a ditch or a culvert that you can hide in. Now, I'm way too fat to fit in there, but my granddaughter could. Now, people often say if you got a problem, head to the high ground. Well, that's great for water, but when it comes to tornadoes, you want to head to the low ground. The lower, the better. If there's underground parking, drive your car there. Drive it underground. That's going to be one of the safest places. If it's a big old concrete parking lot, the tornado isn't going to wipe the concrete out. It's going to wipe out wooden structures, but not the concrete. Go underground. And certainly don't hide under power lines. You never know when they're going to snap. Now, luckily for me, I already pretty much live in an underground bunker here. This is the top. So I was down here in the bottom half, sleeping in the bed. It does have windows, so you're really better off always going in a bathroom. And the main reason they say go in the bathroom is because, check out the bathroom. There's no windows at all. They tell you to close all the doors, windows, and hide in the bathtub. And it was my grandson saying, "Grandpa, get up, there's a tornado." He was standing right here, right over there. Giant pieces of wood were flying through the air. Luckily, it was on the intake of the tornado, so instead of throwing it down, it was picking it up and throwing it over there about half a mile. Do not mess with tornadoes. As you see from the pictures I took earlier, even U-Haul vans get flipped upside down. You get in a little car, who knows what's going to happen? always, always attempt to avoid it in the first place. That's why these cell phones come in real handy. You have weather warnings, and you see the area it is, or if you're a real fanatic, you can have a weather map stuck on your phone anytime, and whenever it goes, you can push on it, you can see, oh, there's a tornado coming here, and get the heck out of the way. So hopefully with these tips, I'll save a few people the next time a tornado comes roaring on. And hey, it might save me, because almost exactly 2 years ago, the longest tornado in the history of the United States ended up here. It was 238 miles long, and it was only 7 miles over there. Almost exactly 2 years later in December, this tornado was half a mile over there. So I think the tornadoes are honing in on me. So I better be really prepared, because the next one might land right on top of me. In which case, I hope it happens while I'm in the cellar sleeping, where it's pretty safe, because it's got steel I-beams in it too. Between the cellar and the top floor, it's a steel beam, so I'd be pretty safe, hopefully. But when it happens, let it happen while I'm sleeping in the cellar. Then I don't have to do anything. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Missing Link says, my Honda transmission slips when it's cold. Got an 05 Honda Pilot with 240,000 miles. Fluid's always been changed. When I start it in the morning, we'll rev up to 2,500 before the car moves. Does it in forward and reverse. Can we do anything to help this? It's just flat wearing out. Those transmissions are relatively weak. You're lucky you got 200-something thousand miles out of it. You're going to have to get rebuilt, or you're going to have to get another vehicle. There's no way out of that. If you want to try, I don't really advise it, but what the heck, it's going out anyways. You could try some of that Lucas anti-slip stop transmission additive. If it's a quart, drain a quart out of your transmission, then pour a quart of the Lucas in and pray. Now, I don't normally advise doing anything with Hondas because they're so touchy, but yours is slipping. Maybe it'll help it a little, but realize if you're planning on keeping the vehicle at any point in time, price what another transmission is going to cost you, because it's going to need one. It's on its way out. That's just the way it is when they get that many miles on a Honda. You start up and it revs up real high before it goes. It's just flat wearing out inside. It's going to need either a total rebuild or buy a ready remanufactured one and give them yours as a trade-in. That's the better way. There's people that know how to rebuild them. There's one place in Ohio, they do a really good job. All they do is Hondas, and you deal with a company like that if you want to keep the vehicle. You try some of the Lucas stop slip, but like I say, it probably won't help it, because that's how those wear when they wear out, and it's got 200-something thousand miles on it, so it's at its end of its lifespan. Began says, when I fill up my gas tank in my 2015 Nissan Frontier, the gas gauge slowly responds. It's a new issue. I've owned it since new. I took it to the dealer. They couldn't find a problem. The float inside is connected to a variable resistor that goes up and down, and it floats in, and that's wearing out. Now, I mean, as long as it goes up and gives you a correct reading while you're going, who cares? Because you drive a while and it starts going down, 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 and then when it gets almost empty, you fill it up, and it takes just about how many gallons yours is supposed to take. It's working. It's just that it's getting old and the electricity doesn't flow through it as well. Now, it's not something that has to be ultra efficient anyways. It's not like your fuel injectors that are firing so many milliseconds and that's it, and they got to do it thousands of times. This is just sending a little bit of electricity to your gauge, and as long as that eventually works, what the heck? I wouldn't even waste my time. Because you're going to have to buy an expensive assembly, fuel pump assembly with the float and the rheostat, all the electronics. As long as it works, I wouldn't worry about it. A lot of them will do that as they age. Especially when it's winter, it gets colder, then the electrical stuff doesn't work as good. There's only a little bit of power in there. It's only 12 volts and a tiny amount of amperage. So as long as it works, I wouldn't worry about it. Now, if it stops working entirely, yeah, then take it out, put a new unit in. Dave Wendy says, I have torque converter shutter. My 2000 Grand Marquis is 54,000 miles. Excellent shape. The converter shutter just started. Is there anything I can do without replacing the transmission? You have to take the transmission off to replace the torque converter. So you don't have to replace the transmission itself, but you got to replace the torque converter, so you got to remove the transmission. It's a lot of labor. Get some anti-shutter additive. There's some very good ones out there. Put them in a transmission and give them 250 to 300 miles of driving, and some of them, they will actually stop them from shuttering. Go to your local auto parts store. There's many brands. They all have pretty much the same ingredients in them. They all work the same kind of way. Lucas makes one. There's all kinds of companies that make them, and from what I've seen, they all have pretty much the same additives. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.